I want to talk a little bit today about a trend that I've noticed lately. More and more luthiers seem to be walking away from custom orders. It seems as though they're getting burned out and tired of all the pressure that comes along with building a customer's dream guitar. I haven't seen any of them quit building outright, but it seems as though they're switching over to spec guitars, building what they want to build, and honestly, I understand why. I've done custom orders before. In this video, we're going to talk about that, what's driving that shift, and what it means for builders as well as the customers. I'm Jeff, you're watching Home Built Workshop. Make sure you stick around. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this episode of Home Built Workshop. I hope all of you are doing awesome. Before we jump into the topic for the day, I'd like to say if you enjoy content like this, talking about guitars, building guitars, DIY projects, behind the scenes stuff, that's what we're going to talk about today. Well, if that's your thing, then consider hitting that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. Hitting that subscribe button and thumbs up if you enjoy the video really helps the algorithms and tells the tubes that this is the place to be for DIY projects and all that sort of thing. So go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button if you're not. And for those of you that are already subscribed, bam, thank you so much. I appreciate each and every one of you. With that out of the way, let's jump into today's topic. The trend that I'm seeing and I want to talk about is the fact that there's a lot of guitar builders that are deciding to not take custom orders. They want to build their own spec models instead of doing the custom builds. To clarify, if you're not familiar, a custom build is really driven by the customer's input more so than the builder. A lot of times the customer will spec things like the body shape, maybe the wood choices, the neck profile, the fretboard radius. A lot of the main specs that we look at when we're talking about a guitar are kind of defined by the customer. They get to give their input, and a lot of the design elements come from the customer. That makes it a custom build. On the other hand, a spec guitar is more of kind of the Luthier's choice, I guess we could say, where maybe they're building their own model and they just build it however they want to build it, the Luthier that is. Or if they're building maybe a T-style or an F-style guitar, maybe they're building something that we would consider kind of standard, but they're using their own components, their own pickup choices, their own fretboard radius, all of that sort of thing. The Luthier is making the choice as to how that guitar looks versus the customer. So we've got a custom build, which is defined by the customer. Is that where custom comes from? Customer? I don't know. We've got the custom build defined by the customer and the spec build, which is more defined by the Luthier. It's kind of like the housing market, right? You've got these big developers that come in to an area and they build a whole neighborhood full of houses. Well, most of the time, those are brand new builds and they're not spec'd out by a particular customer. Sometimes they are, but I think a lot of time they're just built kind of to spec. That hence the name spec guitar or spec house. So how do I know that this is a thing? How do I know that there's a lot of Luthiers giving up custom builds, moving over to spec? Well, I can say with 100% certainty that in just my little area alone, probably within an hour's radius around me, I can think of at least 4 people, myself included, that aren't taking custom orders. They have given them up. Some of them I've talked to personally. They're just not doing it anymore. They want to build what they want to build and then offer it up for sale, which is exactly what I do now. So if I'm aware of that many Luthiers in just my little area, I can only imagine what's going on statewide, nationwide, and really even worldwide. And if you happen to be one of those builders that no longer does custom builds, let us know down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this whole topic. So what drives a Luthier to start taking custom orders in the first place? Well, in my opinion, and remember this is my opinion, I'm sure there's a lot of other opinions out there, but one thing that is appealing is the fact that there's a lot of work out there. There's a lot of customers that want some custom built guitar. They've got a design in their head, their dream guitar, and they need someone to bring that thing to life. And if you're the custom builder, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to be able to get these jobs. And that can be especially appealing if you're trying to keep your business afloat, or maybe you're trying to, earn some money on the side or something like that. The fact that you can get this income can be very appealing. It can also be appealing because you get to do different things on almost every single build. Every build is going to be different because you're working with different customer specifications, different wants, needs, all that sort of thing. And it keeps everything, I don't know, you keep getting to do something different. I don't know what the word is there, but there's a variety. There you go. There's a spice to it because all of the builds are different. And that's kind of cool until it isn't. A lot of us get into this sort of thing because we love building things. We love taking chunks of wood and turning it into something. We love using the creative part of our brain to create something that really has never existed before. After a while, you'd start to realize that you're not being creative anymore. You're only producing what the customer wants, which is your original intention, but you kind of realize that you want to be using the creative side a little bit more, and doing a custom build doesn't really allow you to do that in a lot of cases. Another thing that starts to happen is you realize that it's not all building. There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that none of us get to see. A lot of times even the customer. There's a ton of time that ends up being spent going back and forth in communication with the customer, and that can really eat into a lot of the time you'd rather be building. If you're trying to work out a certain design element and you're waiting for feedback, well, a lot of times you might be at a standstill, and hopefully you have other work that you can be doing while you're waiting for that customer to get back to you. It just takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of mental stress starts to build up. And all of that mental stress building up leads to burnout. And I think that's where a lot of these people are getting to, which makes them decide to stop taking custom builds. There's just too much stress that's related to it. If you're a custom builder, you might have the coolest customers ever. I'm not knocking any of the customers, but really it only takes one difficult project to kind of sour the whole experience. Once that happens, then it seems like everything becomes a stressor. Deadlines are a stressor, design changes are a stressor. Every little thing that's out of your control is one more weight added to your shoulders until you get to that point where you say, I've had enough. I'm not doing this anymore. And really, I think that's where a lot of these luthiers are getting to. All of the stressors of doing a truly custom build have just gotten out of hand. And that's why they're deciding to switch to spec builds. Why do luthiers love spec builds? Well, we get to be creative again. We get to build an instrument that we want to build. I'm not building it for a particular customer, or it's not designed by somebody else. It's truly what I want to do. I'm going to decide the wood, I'm going to decide the shape, I'm going to decide the color, I'm going to decide the electronics, or if it has electronics or not. All of the choices are up to the luthier. And if there's any sort of customer input on a build, it is so minimal. And I'm talking like maybe hardware or pickups or something like that. Other than that, the entire build is exactly what the luthier wants to build. You have so much more creative freedom, and if it's something that you want to build, you really put more heart and soul into that instrument rather than just knocking out something that a customer wants. I think when this happens, the end result is an even better instrument than the custom build. I'm not saying that the custom build ends with a bad instrument. I just think that if the luthier is really excited about the project, it's something that they want to build, then they're going to spend more time, more energy, more careful craftsmanship, all of that sort of stuff, which results in a better instrument. And well, that's good all the way around. With a spec guitar, the luthier feels more free. They're already building what they want, and they don't have a specific deadline in a lot of cases. And that means they can build it when they want, how they want. And if it takes a short amount of time or a long amount of time, it doesn't really matter. They're not answering to anybody. When the guitar's done, it's done. And then they might offer it up for sale, however they choose to sell their instruments, if they choose to sell their instruments. But I think a lot of us are building them to sell, so we're going to kind of take that route. They build it how they want, when they want. There's no deadline, and I think you get a much better instrument out of the whole deal. Another benefit I think that comes out of having the creative freedom of a spec build is I think you see more innovation that way. If you're not bound to a set of constraints based on what the customer wants, when you have the freedom to do whatever you want, I feel like it opens up your mind to thinking more outside the box. And that's when we come up with new ways of making a piece or new ideas, something that maybe we would have never explored if we're bound to the constraints of a custom build. So what does this mean for buyers? Maybe you're looking to purchase a new custom guitar or at least something from a local luthier. Well, unfortunately, on the custom side, if you're looking for a custom guitar, it does mean that there's going to be less people overall that are offering truly custom work. You might just consider looking at what's available on the market and trust the luthier's vision. And if you find a builder that you like their style, consider supporting them. And if you really are looking for a custom built instrument and you can find someone offering custom work, just be respectful, be reasonable. If they tell you a certain combination is not a good idea or even that it won't work, well, they know what they're doing. And again, be respectful and consider that if they say that this isn't going to work, there's a reason for that. They've got the experience and they're the one doing the work. Don't be afraid to ask questions though of your local luthier, even if they're not taking any truly custom builds. If they have a model that you really like and you kind of have your eye on one, but maybe it's not the right color, it's totally fine to ask them, hey, can I get that model with a blue finish and, I don't know, black tuners? It's totally fine to ask. In a lot of cases, I'd be surprised if they didn't agree and build one with the blue finish and whatever hardware choice you want. As long as it's their model, they are going to know what they can and can't do, and they'll for sure let you know if it's something they can't accommodate. Just again, be respectful, but don't be afraid to ask the questions. Just because they're not doing custom builds doesn't mean they can't make some accommodations to give you the instrument that you really'd like to have. So what's my own personal take on this thing? Well, as a builder myself, I 100% am with you if you've decided to not do customs anymore. You're only going to do specs. I'm with you. I understand. I have experienced all of the challenges, and I too have decided to not offer one-off custom guitar builds. I will, however, try to work in any sort of request from a customer as long as it's on one of my own personal Haley Guitars models. We can do things like color, hardware, pickups, all of that sort of thing, but it's going to be on one of my own models, not on a one-off custom build. I have experienced all of those challenges, the stress of a custom build, the challenges with trying to go back and forth with customers. It's just too much and it takes all of the fun out of building. I've spoken with several of these luthiers myself, and in fact, if I'd have thought about it earlier, I would have tried to work in an interview so you would hear it from someone other than myself. And maybe if there's interest, I might try to do that in the future. Let me know down below in the comments if you wouldn't mind seeing maybe a luthier interview or something along those lines. But I've heard some stories. I've heard horror stories of people building a complete custom guitar. The customer pays for it. They take it home. They say they love it. And then a month later, they're bringing it back, demanding a refund because for whatever reason, they don't like it anymore, or they don't want it, or maybe they don't give you the whole truth. And that's super stressful. If you're relying on that income as part of your business, and then a month later, a customer comes in and says, I want my money back, what do, right? That right there is a certain level of stress. So let's say you give them your money back, now you're out that money, but maybe you've already bought groceries and you've put gas in the car kind of thing. Now it's money out of your pocket, and you're stuck with the guitar that is a truly custom build. How are you going to sell that? I get it. I totally get it. I can speak from experience and say that even if your customer is great, there's no issue there, there's a different level of stress when you're trying to complete this instrument because you know that the customer has requested something a certain way, and you're always worried throughout the process that is this going to meet their expectations? No matter how you sort of temper those expectations, you just never know if what you think is good enough is going to meet what the customer thinks is good enough. And that's a stress that I just don't want. Again, I would much rather just build what I want to build when I want to build it and on the deadline that I want to build it. It's so much less stressful. And like I mentioned already, you get a much better instrument, in my opinion, out of the whole thing. And I know for a fact that that's exactly why a lot of luthiers are choosing to give up custom orders and move to only producing spec guitars. As we wrap this up, there's a couple things I want to know. Number one, have you ever bought a custom guitar from someone? I want to know your experience. Was it everything you'd hoped for? What was the ups and downs? Secondly, are you a luthier that builds guitars from scratch? Do you still build custom guitars? Do you take custom orders? Why or why not? Let me know either way down below in the comments. I hope you found this interesting, give you something to think about. I want to hear from all of you. Leave it down below. Thanks a lot for watching. I can't wait to read your replies. We'll see you next time.